So, so can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I have actually structured this presentation in two parts. The first part basically talks about what is actually a quality research paper, and the second part talks about how we can actually take some strategies, make some moves to go ahead and write papers in quality journals. So I think most of us are from social sciences, so you must be aware about Scopus. Those are from humanities or management, they are more aware about the ABD. So these are the rankings or the indexes that is being used for quality journals. So ABDC is used, it stands for Australian Business Deans Council, and Scopus I think everybody is aware of. So we must target those journals which are indexed in these. Okay, so before proceeding, what I want to highlight is before COVID, before COVID, it was not that difficult to write papers. But what happened during COVID is that students and teachers and searchers, they all had a lot of time. And all of a sudden, the good journals, they expected getting the papers what they used to get. It actually increased 6 or 7 times. So let's say a quality journal which used to get 300 or 400 papers a year, now they are getting around 1500 papers per year. So the acceptance rate in any good quality journal is around 8 to 10%. So let's say if a journal gets 1000 papers, so around 80 to 85% papers are desk rejected. That means out of 1800 to 850 are desk rejected. The remaining 150 go for the review process, and out of that maybe around 75 or 80 are published. So that makes it the acceptance rate around 8% maybe. So now you need to come with a better approach as far as the writing a paper is concerned. So with this, we proceed further. So why one needs to publish quality research papers? So these are few of the intrinsic motivations that drive researchers towards publishing. The first and foremost is to get recognition. When you publish a paper in a good journal, so definitely you get recognition not only by the institute to which you belong, but you get the recognition at the national and international level if that journal is of that quality. Definitely to build resume, as if you are a scholar, then one day you want to work as an assistant professor. So building your resume is one of the things that will help you in getting or fetching a good job. The next is the same, that is to get appointment as assistant professor. So most of the B schools, good B schools, they give a lot of weightage to quality research papers. So one of the major criteria for selection is whether you have published in Scopus, whether you have published in ABDC. So that's one of the major criteria, and that's one of the essential criteria for getting an interview call as well. So that is why you need to publish in good journals, and to communicate your ideas to a larger audience. Whatever your thoughts are, whatever you think regarding research, so how you communicate. So good journals provide us a platform to communicate our ideas to a larger audience. So with this, let's come to the next part, that is, does first author publication matter? So now this is a question which must be going through most of you. Like if I am a second author or the third author or the fourth author, if I'm not the first author, so will it matter? So like for early career researchers, like if you are a research scholar, I think it definitely matters. You should be first author in most of the publications if you are an early career researcher. Maybe if you are assistant professor or associate professor, at that point of time, the first author publications will not matter much. Now, in front of you, I have shared the recruitment portal of IIM Nagpur. So you see, when you apply for the post of assistant professor at IIM Nagpur, when you are asked to upload your publications, so you see you have an option whether the publication which you're trying to upload, whether you are the sole author or whether you are the first author. That means even if it's a category or A star category journal, and if you are not the first author, you will not be able to claim points for that. So in that case, this institute is actually giving weightage to only first author publication. The same is true for IM Sirmor also. So nowadays the institutes are moving towards, because the number of publications has increased significantly. So in order to make a distinction between the first author publications and just a publication as a co-author, they have started doing this differentiation nowadays. So it matters for early career researchers. Then, does the number of authors in a publication matter? Now, this is another question, because nowadays we have seen a paper with 6, 7, 8 authors. So this used to be more in sciences, but now we are seeing this trend emerging in social sciences as well. Now, see this paper. So it has been published in one of the top journals, that is a category journal, Scopus Q1 SSCI indexed. So this is technological forecasting and social change. So now you see there are 6 authors in this. Okay. And if you move ahead, now the journal is same, and you see the number of authors. This is just a single author, that's a sole author publication. Now, do you think, if you talk about this publication, the author on the 6th position or on the 5th position, let's say Brian or Michael, whatever it is, so will they get the same weightage if they sit for an interview as this individual R Rajesh will be getting if he sits for the interviews? Definitely they will not be getting that. And if there are more number of authors, let's say there are 6 or 7 authors and you are not the first author, so it becomes more difficult for you to justify your contribution when you are asked about that paper. Let's say there are 6 or 7 authors and you are asked, what is your contribution? You cannot say that a lot of things I contributed, because that makes like what other 5 or 6 authors were doing except you. So for early career researchers, it's good to have first author publication, and some publications where you are not having too many authors. Obviously, in order to increase the number of publications, you need to collaborate, but make sure that you have few publications where the number of authors are maybe 2, 3, not more than that in the initial stages. Okay. So now, if you think it's easy, you are doing it wrong. So this is a very famous quote, and this is equally applicable to academia as well. Why I'm saying that, if you are publishing and you think that publishing is very easy and you can publish it, the task is actually very easy. So actually it's not like that. If you're targeting a very good journal, so publishing takes time, publishing takes a lot of effort. Now, to substantiate my this thought, I like to share something. So see, this is one of the papers which I was a reviewer of. So this paper came for review, and the name of the journal is International Journal of Emerging Markets. Here it is. Okay, this is a B category journal, SSCI indexed. And see, this is the manuscript number. I've highlighted this. So that means R2. That means it went through 2 rounds of revision. And after 2 rounds of revision, and this was submitted to the journal in January, see the date, 01/2022 means it was submitted to the journal in January 2022. And it was rejected on 24th of February. So after 13 months, after 2 rounds of revision, the paper has been rejected. So, and what is the reason for rejection? Is go down. There were 3 reviewers, and the first reviewer gave it as minor revision, the second one gave as the accept decision, and the third one gave it as the reject decision. But still it was rejected, and it was rejected because they have raised some concerns regarding the contribution of the paper. So on that basis, they are saying that it does not make that sufficient contribution to the existing literature. The paper got rejected. So this is one of the things that I wanted to point out, why it is not easy. Similarly, I'll show you. This was one of my papers, which ultimately got accepted in and published in B category. So this was published in International Journal of Productivity and Performance Management. So when I had this paper. So see the comments they had. So this is the response sheet. Once you send a paper to a good journal, you'll get a lot of comments and you need to address each and every comment. So this, see, you see, this is a 10-page response sheet. How much detail they have asked to go in regarding each and every question. So if it's a good quality journal, the manuscript that you send and finally the manuscript that gets published, there is a significant difference between those two based on the extensive revision that the reviewers will ask you to do. So this is, I'm just showing you the response sheet that we have submitted for this paper. It's a 10-page response sheet for the question asked by the reviewers and how we have addressed this. Okay, so now moving forward with the presentation. So now, before you start, now think about the domain and the content. So in which domain you want to work, or let's say what will be the content of the research papers, what would the constructs, what will the area, you need to be very specific regarding that. Then what is the rationale or logic behind targeting a particular journal? Now, I think most of the people go the other way around. You first write a paper and then you think of selecting a journal, the suitable outlet for your study. But after completing a paper, sometimes it becomes difficult to find a fit for your paper. And most of the times you get a decision that the manuscript that you have submitted is not matching the scope of the journal, and you get a desk rejection. So I think the ideal way is to first explore a journal, first decide and target few journals, that these are the journals which you will be targeting based on your area of interest or based on your research topic, and then go through few of the research papers published in that journal, and then try to see what is the aim scope of that journal, what are the areas in which they are publishing more of the papers, and then based on that try to structure your paper according to that journal. So in that case, your paper will have much better chances of sailing through that journal once you identify the requirements of that particular journal. Otherwise, if you just try to fit in once you have completed, it becomes more difficult of a task. Now that is what you should start with. Then I think all of you must be aware of the ORCID ID, what ORCID ID is, because without ORCID ID, we cannot make a submission in a good journal. They will ask us to submit it through our ORCID ID. We have to link our ORCID ID. So those of you who are not aware of the ORCID ID, I'll just show you what it looks like. So I just enclosed the link for my ORCID ID. So this is, and what is the importance of ORCID ID? Let's say you go to a bank to take a loan. So based on your credit score, based on your past transactions, you will get the loan. So the probability of getting a loan is higher when your credit score and past transactions and everything is fine. So ORCID ID actually gives you gives the editor or the reviewer a glimpse of your research competency, the kind of publications that the first section actually has your biography. You can put it here. Then it talks about the employment and all those things. But if you scroll it down, it has actually it has what the projects you have. The most important part is this: the works where you have published. So it includes the details of the works where you have published, name of journal. So based on this, the reviewer or the editor, they will be editor will be able to have a glimpse of your research capability, what evidence you have as far as the quality research is concerned. And similarly, if you scroll it down, you will see it also has a section where actually you can display the reviews that you have done for others. So there's a section for peer review. So these are the journals for which I have worked as a reviewer and evaluated the papers of the peer uh, scholars. So this is, I think, important if you want to publish. And ORCID ID will not, you cannot build your ORCID ID in just a day, but it takes time, and slowly and gradually you can actually make your ORCID ID better, and your chances of publishing in a good journal also becomes better with that. So now let me take you through the major sections in a manuscript. So you talk of any research paper, it will have these 8 sections. So almost you can go through any paper, you'll find these 8 sections in almost all the papers. So what are those sections? It starts with the abstract, the introduction, literature review and hypothesis development. That's the third section. Then you have the section for methodology. Then we have the data analysis and results, discussion, implications, and the final one is the limitations and scope for future research. So I will be going through almost all the sections briefly. I think this is a 10-day workshop, so you must have a dedicated session for some of these sections. So it will not be possible to ponder enough time on each of the sections, but still I'll try to relate it with a research paper, with one of my research papers. So that will help you in understanding the importance of that section in detail. Okay. So coming to the abstract. Okay. So what is abstract? So when we talk about abstract, so this is how the abstract actually looks like. So this is one of my papers, the sole author paper, and this was published in B category journal. So you see, if you think of abstract, abstract is something, I think this is one of the most important sections of any research paper, because through abstract, the editor will come to know about what this research paper talks about. And it should be very clear, like this is a abstract format for an emerald journal. Here you have 5 heads. Here you have 5 different heads, and the word limit is 250. So you have the section of the purpose. What is the purpose of a paper? What is the design methodology, or what are the findings of the study? And then what are the implications and the originality value, that is what contribution it is making. So when we talk about the purpose, so basically what is the objective of a study, what is the rationale of a study, that has to be made clear. Like if you read this line, the study endeavors to explicate the enablers of online hotel booking intentions. So that has to be made clear in the purpose very clearly. Then a design methodology approach talks about the sampling that you have used, what is the sample size, and the analysis techniques, like if you have used mediation, moderation, or whatever it is, SEM analysis. You have to talk about all those things in the design section of the abstract. Findings talks about which construct or the which factor emerged as the most significant, which was not that significant, or which was significant, whether there were moderating effects. So that talks about in all these we talk about findings. Let's say we talk about the results manifest that the hotel website credibility, perceived website interactivity, and perceived ease of use aggrandize perceived usefulness. So which in turn considerably magnifies travelers' online hotel booking. So all the things which factors emerge as important, you need to mention in the findings section. Then there's a section of limitations or implications. So here we try to talk about how the findings of the study could be useful for the different stakeholders, maybe the theoretical and practical implications that we have. So we don't have enough space, so we deal it with this in detail in the later part of the paper. But we just mentioned that the paper has certain theoretical and practical implications for the various stakeholders. And then finally, the last section is the originality or the value. That is how your paper is adding something to the literature. What is the USP of your paper, or how it is unique? So you have to find out, like point out, like the literature on this in this area is not that much. So based on that, you have to show that you are working on this. Like I have mentioned, there's a paucity of literature on hotel website credibility and perceived pandemic risk. So this is a 2-year-old paper. So that time pandemic was not that much explored. So I have tried to come with something novel based on this. Okay, so this is how the abstract should be written. And this was abstract as per the Emerald style. So we can have abstract as per the, like, let's say this is a Taylor and Francis journal and Journal of Food Service Business Research. And see here you have a consolidated abstract. It is not having the 5 different sections, but if you see the content, it will be more or less the same. So the first thing here, it talks about the objective, then you have the methodology, then you have the findings, then you have the implications, and then you have the novelty. So if you have to write abstract, just keep in mind the format of the Emerald's abstract and those 5 heads, and try to pen down your abstract section. That will help you in defining it. Okay. So let's move ahead. So organizing a manuscript before sending it to a journal. So before you send your manuscript, it's very important to go through the author guidelines. If you go explore any journal, there will be a section called author guidelines, which talks about the formatting to be followed, whether it is APA, like when we talk about the Sage or the Italian Francis or the elsewhere, they follow mostly APA style. If it's an Emerald Emerald journal, so it will be following the Emerald Harvard style. So you have to be very careful regarding which style the journal is following, and you have to structure your format your manuscript according to those style. And then word count. Now this is very important. Initially, maybe 3 4 years back, the journals were not that harsh, not that rigid as far as the word count is concerned, but now they have become very strict on the word count. Let's say there are various, let's say some of the journals have the 6,000 words of word count. Let's say we have the journal of retailing consumer services. Some has 8,000 words, like marketing intelligence and planning gives you 8,000 words. TQM journal gives you 9,000. International Journal of Productivity and Performance Management gives you 10,000. Benchmarking gives you 12,000. International Journal of Bank Marketing gives you 11,500. So it ranges generally between 6,000 to 12,000. But mostly you will see it's around 8,000, 9,000. Most of the journals 8,000, 9,000, or maybe 10,000 mark. So you have to be very specific regarding the word count. So segregate your whole manuscript and decide, like, in this section you are going to devote this much of words. So in that way your manuscript will not exceed the most of the problems that I've seen the scholars face is, once they complete the paper, let's say if it's a 10,000 word paper they are trying, by the time they complete it goes to 12,000. Now it becomes very difficult to trim that 2,000 later and fit in as per the journal. So you have to be very specific right from the starting when you're writing, to keep a check on the word count. Okay. Then importance of the cover letter to the editor. So when we submit a paper, it has to be accompanied with a cover letter, because it gives a bird's eye view of what is there in your paper. So the editor will come to know the relevance of your paper, or what contribution it is making, or what unique or what USPs of your paper. And I think it's important to accompany the research paper along with the cover letter. I've seen few of the scholars, they don't attach the cover letter and they just submit their manuscript. So how does this looks like? You'll just this is how the cover letter looks like. So you just you address it to the editor, and then you talk about the topic of your paper, and then you just give a glimpse of your paper, like what is your objectives, what is the novelty, and all those things in one paragraph. And then you write about the corresponding author. Corresponding author is that individual who is basically submitting the paper, and you can associate your ORCID ID along with that, so the editor can check your credibility regarding research publications and all those things through that. So this is the importance of cover letter. I think everybody should attach a cover letter. Then title page. Now this one is interesting. So title should be usually 12 to 20 words, because most of the journals actually have a upper limit on the title also, that it should not exceed 20 words. So you have to keep it very crisp. Unnecessary, don't add some keywords or some other mnemonic constructs in the title so that it exceeds 20 letters. Now of late, if you see a few of the research papers, there's a trend of having a catchy or a attention grabbing title. So what do I mean by catchy or attention grabbing? Before that, what should it include? Let's say this is one of my papers which was published in B category journal. So see, this title is elucidating the role of digital technologies in bridging the ramifications of COVID-19 restaurant services. Now, what was the USP of my paper? It was pandemic susceptibility and severity. So it should be included in your title. If there is something unique, some unique constructs you are using, so the name of those constructs should be a part of your title, so that at least it can attract attention from the editor and the reviewer. So this is how the title works. Now let's talk about some catchy title which attracts the attention of someone. So just go through these titles. This is a title: early bird or early worm, first mover disadvantage, and the success of web-based social enterprises. So there is a trend of having a phrase in front of the ahead of the main title. So this is how the it will attract the attention of the reader. Similarly, you see this was written during the COVID time: caged, helpless, but not bored, consumption values derived from over the top platforms during pandemic. So this is again something which is very interesting, which is very catchy. Then there's a lot of buzz going around the use of chat GPT in academia. So they see the title: let the devil speak for itself, should chat GPT be allowed or banned in hospitality and tourism schools? So this is one of the catchy phrases which can be used. And regarding M payment, you see this one. This was again, I think, during the COVID time. I won't touch money because it is dirty. Examining a customer's loyalty towards M payment, that is mobile payment. So these are few of the catchy phrases which can be used. Uh, but my suggestion is your paper should also be good. If your title is very unique, you think out of the box and be very innovative with the title. But your original work, original manuscript is not that good, then title will not do any justice. But it will definitely provide you an edge if your work is also good. I think abstract section we have already discussed, so I'm not going to discuss the abstract one. We'll move to the keywords. So when we have any paper, so this is how, just after the abstract, we have this section, that is the keyword section. I've highlighted this. So for generally, we use the name of the constructs as keywords. So here I have used perceived pandemic risk, service affordability, hotel website credibility, perceived website interactivity, technology acceptance model, the model that you are going to use in your study, online hotel booking intent. So mostly these all are my constructs, the factors that have been used. So you mostly or maybe you have used some advanced analysis technique. So you can also use it. Some papers you will see some serial mediation or moderated mediation, something like that they have used. So they put it as the keyword also. So you can use it like that also. So generally, most of the papers will allow you 6 keywords to be used. Introduction. Now, this is the first section of a manuscript. It starts just after the abstract. You have the introduction section. Now, I think this is one of the most important sections, and the editor, before sending it for the review, they will be going through this section. And if it doesn't make that much of sense as far as what is the gap, what are the objectives of the study, what is the problem, what are the research questions or the objectives, and which model you are using, the implications part. If these kind of information the editor is not able to extract, then there are very less chances that your paper will go through the review process. So when you think of introduction section, you need to be very specific regarding this, whether your introduction section takes or addresses these things. So it should highlight the research gap, problem statement, research question, if applicable, and the objectives of the study very, very clearly. So you should pay attention to these. And the last paragraph, if there is no issue of word limit and you are not finding it hard to maintain the limit, then you can add a additional paragraph where you can talk about the structure of the rest of the paper. So let me see whether I have used it here. You see the last section. The paper has been structured in the following manner. In section 2, the literature review and hypothesis development. And section 3 talks about the research methodology. Section 4 puts forward the major findings. 5, 6 talks about the discussion and implications and conclusions in section 7. So last, you can put it like this if you are not tight on the word limit part. This is optional one. So, but introduction, I'll also try to dwell a bit deeper. So this is one of the papers that we have submitted recently in Internet Research, a category journal. So I'll just go through few of the parts here. So if you see the in-depth literature on mobile payments system help to acknowledge that a few studies have attempted to investigate the role of financial knowledge and technical uncertainty along with the UTAUT model. So this part, similarly, the means and chain approach has also been used. So you are talking about what has been done, and you see this line. However, the low adoption of M payment service calls for detailed investigation. And a considerable research on payment systems and utility models show that the future studies must consider the impact of different network size, enjoyment quotient, responsiveness, security, all these things. So you have to come with a gap. You have to come out with a gap, like what has been done and what has been less explored. So you are doing this. So that is the first thing that has to be highlighted. Then you can give a glimpse of the problem. Like here we are giving that if there is cash transactions, then what kind of problem are there, and if you're going to the M payment, so what it facilitates, what kind of the activities can be stopped, illegitimate financial transactions can be handled to an extent. So this part actually talks about that, like M payment makes financial transactions more transparent and could curb the formation of shadow economies by embracing a cashless culture. So this, and then if you go further, you have to highlight the research questions, and research questions will be related to your constructs. Like, would a favorable attitude of M payment users help in adopting M payment? Do referent network size, perceive enjoyment, good service quality, and users' financial knowledge lead to positive attitudes and eventually to adoption of M payment? And do perceive responsiveness and perceive uncertainty moderate the relationship between attitude towards M payment services and M payment adoption? So these are the research questions that we have thrown in the paper, and your objectives are basically an answer. It's a rephrasing of the research questions. So if you see, these are the research questions, and if you look at the objectives, this our study aims to understand better the M payment usage and its adoption by providing enduring insights for users, service providers. So the study explores moderating effects. So this is the objective of the study. So it has to be your introduction section has to have these things mentioned very clearly. What is the gap, problem, research questions, objectives? If the editor is not able to find these things, then they will perhaps say that these things are missing. So the intent of this study while conducting the study is not very clear. So that is why introduction is very important. The next section, I'm not going to the literature review because it's a very long section, and I think you have already had some sessions which you must have dwelt into the literature review. So I'm going to the methodology part, and this section should be in great detail. Why I say this section should be in great detail? Because this is a section which the future researchers might use to repeat the same kind of study. So until unless it is in great detail, they will not have the enough information to repeat or replicate this kind of study. So it provides credibility to your findings. If it's in detail, what you are doing, how you collected the data, how you floated the questionnaire, what was the sampling technique used, all these things, what are the tools and techniques. So all these things have to be mentioned clearly in the methodology section. So I'll just show you one of the methodology sections of my paper. So yeah, so I've highlighted the entire methodology section. Like here it talks about the target population, who is the target population for the study, and then how the questionnaire was floated. We use the Google Forms, and it was floated through Facebook and social media platforms like WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Instagram, and all those things. And then whether it had a screening question so that you can filter it out, that has to be mentioned, because maybe the things which you're asking, who are the appropriate respondents to answer that has to be mentioned. So you have to have a filter question for that. And then if I'm going for the online mode for collecting data, so what is the rationale for that? What is the rationale that I have used the online mode and not the offline mode? You have to give that. And then pre-testing is one of the things which has to be done. You have to pre-test the questionnaire so that you can find out the flaws and the inconsistencies, and based on the recommendation, you can actually improve the questionnaire before you float it to the larger sample. And Then when was the time period from which to which the questionnaire was floated or the data was collected, you have to mention that thing also. And whether you have used a structured questionnaire or whether you have use something else, so that has to be mentioned. And then to how many people actually you contacted, how many agreed to respond, and out of those responses, some responses might have been actually the outliers, so you have to take it out. So actually, what is the number of sample or the responses on which you are actually conducting the analysis? Like I am saying, out of 900, only 560 questionnaires were found suitable for further analysis. So my analysis here is based on 560 and not 900. That has to be mentioned clearly. And then let's say you are applying a technique of SEM. So my questionnaire had 37 items. So as per the rules, the guidelines, you should have at least 10 times the samples. Like if you are having 37 items, you should have at least 370 responses to apply SEM. So we had 560, so that was not an issue. So all these things have to be clearly mentioned. And then what is the language that you are using for the questionnaire? If you're using English, what is the rationale behind using English language? So like I have mentioned, English was identified as a suitable choice because almost all the users who book hotel online and use social media platforms are quite comfortable with English language. So whatever steps you are taking, whatever tools, techniques, approach you are applying, methodology section, you have to give justification for everything. Let's say you are doing a survey on students entrepreneur intentions, and you have selected 5 universities. Now, how you select 5 universities? There should be a rationale for selection of 5 universities. So let's say you cannot randomly select any 5 universities. So let's say you can use the NIF ranking list, the top 5 universities, the top 5 central universities you can take. Or if you are talking about the management institutes, you can take the top 5 management institutes. So you have to have a justification for everything. Let's say you want to conduct a survey in restaurants to find out the revisit intention of the customers. So how you select the restaurants? So justification could be the restaurants could be selected based on, if you have some list which ranks the restaurants, if you have something like that. Or maybe you want to collect data from some malls. So do you have, you cannot say this mall is famous, so I went there and collected the data. You have to have some rationale of ranking of those malls or selection of those malls. Let's say you select the malls based on the number of footfalls. The number of footfalls, the malls having more number of footfalls, you select those malls in that order. So have some logic, have some rationale, have some justification as far as the selection is concerned. Otherwise, the question will come, how you went about selecting these malls or selecting these institutes or selecting these respondents. So you have to defend that. So that is what the methodology section talks about. And this is a very important section. Now, data analysis and results. So this is a section actually which will take time for you to learn, because you need to learn the techniques of mediation, moderation, regression, correlation, all those things you need to learn. Then only you can be competent in this section. So when we talk about the data analysis section, it's a very complicated section, and it has a lot of tables where you have a lot of values. And let's say we are talking about the use of structural equation modeling. So it has a 2 steps, like we have to evaluate it through the measurement model, we have to evaluate through the structural model, and then we test the predictive strength of the model and all those things. Then we test the reliability and validity of the scale through Cronbach's alpha and average variance extracted values, and we see the discriminant validity. So all these things we test and we check in the analysis. We evaluate whatever the proposed hypothesis that we have in the literature review and hypothesis development section. We evaluate those relationships based on the p-values in this section, and we come out with the conclusion that this hypothesis supported or not supported. And we also find out the strength of those hypotheses based on the beta coefficient values. So we can say that this relationship or impact of this factor on the dependent variable is the strongest, or this is the weakest, or this is not significant based on the values. Similarly, we can conduct the mediation to see the relationship between 2 variables and how it is mediated by a 3rd variable. and we can go for a moderation also. So these are the techniques which you have to learn. It will take time. You can go through various workshops, you can go through various YouTube videos also to get a hold of these techniques, how these techniques are uh, conducted. Okay, so the next section that we have here is discussion. Now, what is the difference between a discussion section and a data analysis section? In data analysis section, we have basically only the numbers and the tables, and we don't discuss them in detail, that why this emerged as the most important factor. We just say that, let's say this impact of pu and ohbi is most significant because the beta coefficient here is 0.486, which means 48.6%. So, but why this is happening, we don't argue that much, or we don't give a justification that much. Or let's say if any relationship is not significant, why that is insignificant, we have to come with a rationale for that. So we discuss all these things: which is the most important factor, which is the least important factor, is there a mediation, what could be the reason for mediation, or whether our findings are in line with the literature, or whether our findings are contradictory to the literature. Everything we have to mention it here. Like if you go through the wordings, we say that we're exploring the drivers of perceived ease of use, and we say that hotel website credibility emerged as the most important one. And then we talk about the rationale behind why it could be, and then we say that the findings of the study corroborated the results of this and this. That is whether they are in line with the previous studies, or if they are contradicting the previous studies, that we have to mention. So here we discuss all these things. Like this is the model that we have used. This is the my conceptual model, and you see these are the constructs that has been used in this study. And R square talks about the predictive strength of the model. Okay, so one thing also I want to mention. Let's say if something strange comes through your analysis, if something strange comes through analysis, you have to justify that thing in discussion section. What could be the reason for that? Let's say this is a study which I conducted during the COVID, and I used two moderators. You see, these are the two moderators: service affordability and perceived pandemic risk. These are the two moderators which have been used to find out the strength of relationship between perceived usefulness and online hotel booking intention. And both the moderators were significant. Like there was a moderation affecting the strength of the relationship between these two. But in my study, service affordability had emerged as a more significant moderator as compared to perceived pandemic risk. Now the question might be there, like, pandemic was such an issue in India, then why perceived pandemic risk did not emerge as that significant moderator as compared to service affordability? So reason for this you have to mention, if there is any reasons. Thus, I have mentioned it here. See, the strength of service affordability as a moderator was more than perceived pandemic risk. This might be due to the fact that the data were collected just after the first wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the ramifications were not that severe in comparison to the second wave. So if you remember the first wave of COVID-19 in India, that was somewhere around April, May 2020, it was not that severe. Although there were a lot of lockdowns, but the impact and the deaths and all those things were not that severe as compared to the second wave that happened in April, May 2021. So that could be one of the reasons that perceived pandemic risk could not be having that much of a impact as a moderator as compared to the service affordability. So if your finding is something like something strange, you have to have a justification for that. If you don't give a justification, maybe you might get a question from the reviewer when it goes for the review. Okay, so this is what the discussion section talks about. So next section is implications. And now I'll say this is the make or break section of a manuscript. This is one of those sections which the editor or the associate editor will go through before sending your manuscript for review. So they will just go through the abstract section, they will go through the introduction slightly, and straight away they will come to your implication section. They will not go through the literature review and all those things in detail initially. They will go and see your implications, like what theoretical and practical implications your study offers. What is its importance as far as its contribution to theory and practice is concerned. So what value addition it makes to the existing literature, how the findings can be utilized by the practitioners. Like let's say for hotel industry, who could be the practitioners? Practitioners could be the hoteliers, that is the hotel owners. It could be the managers, how your study could be valuable for the managers. Let's say the website developers, what details they should be paying as far as the development of website is concerned. The government or the policymakers, what they need to take it into consideration so that they can promote the growth of this industry, because it needs a complete overhaul after the COVID. And then ultimately the prospective travelers who are actually trying to book hotels. So how the study's findings could be useful for them. So this is the practical implications of a study. You have to select the stakeholders and justify its relevance for the different stakeholders. And people actually go and go through the quality research papers published in good journals because of these implications, what implication it has for the industry. So if you see papers nowadays, they are segregating it into different sections as far as the implications are concerned. If you see this paper, you have the theoretical implications, you have first, second, third, fourth. Then you have a section for managerial implications. We are from management, so we use it managerial. Otherwise, you can use the term theoretical implications, or you can say the implications for theory. Uh, and then this is that section. And nowadays they are also having some section as social implications. So theoretical implications, practical implications, and social implications. So editors are paying a lot of attention to these, and if your papers make substantial contribution as far as these things are concerned, then only it has a chance to sail through the journey and get published in a good research paper. So you should give a lot of detail, and this section you can actually pen down only when you read a lot of research papers, when you read a lot of reports, recent reports, government policy, RBI reports. So then you only will come to know about the initiatives taken by the government and how your findings can be helpful. Let's say you are doing research in entrepreneurship. So how the findings could be helpful for, let's say, the national education policy, like how you can actually correlate it with the NEP. So in this way, you have to correlate your findings with the policy documents, or the how it can be beneficial for the policy makers. Okay. Then references and citations. So when you complete that part, the last section is you have to have a references. So you need to cite other authors' work even if you are using their ideas, their assertions, their models, methodology, scaling. And if you are using anything, if you're borrowing anything from anyone's else's work, you have to give due credit to them. If you don't give due credit to them, that means ki you are claiming someone else's work and presenting it as your own work. This is something which is called the plagiarism. If it's not your work, even if you take an idea from someone, you should give credit to that original author. And references should be used liberally, means you should be trying to use as much referencing as possible. And if you are not using references properly, then already mentioned that there's a chances that it might be considered as an act of plagiarism as well. And if you are not paying due attention to the similarity, let me see, say if you are using a lot of content from the literature and pasting it in your papers. So if you send it to a good journal, they will check it through Turnitin, and Turnitin database is so rich that whatever you take, it will get reflected there. So what are the colors you see? The Turnitin is actually finding similarity, uh, and it's matching its database and comparing it with the research paper that you are submitting. So this is how the Turnitin actually works, and no paper will be sent for review without this check. So agar aap nahi bhi karte ho, to it will be कि the editor will be going doing this on your behalf. And if you have similarity more than 15%, most of the journals have it at around 15%, so they don't send it for review if it usually have similarity more than 15. Some are more strict, so you see it should be less than 15%. So our paper had a similarity of 13%, so we could submit it for the review for the to a journal. So work, you should be paying more attention to this part as well. Then okay, so again, importance of references. If let's say you are studying, going through someone else's paper, and you like their paper and you want to extend your work, or you want to do that your work in that area, and if you see references in that paper, that will help you to go through the related papers of that area. Similarly, future researchers might find, if they find your area engaging, your research paper engaging, so they can go through the references provided in your paper, and they can actually build on the research work. So that is the value of, or the importance of references. Now, the important thing is handling rejections. So this is something which is bound to happen. This is something which is bound to happen because if you are thinking of publishing in good journals, rejections are a part of that journey. You cannot avoid it. As I already said, that the acceptance rate in good journal is around 8 to 10%. That means around 90% of papers are getting rejected. So that means you are not alone in that race. So a lot of papers are getting this rejected. And don't get depressed or don't get discouraged when your paper gets rejected. One of my paper got rejected today morning only. So it's a part of journey. It's a part of journey, and we keep on learning. So usually I face around 5 to 6 or 7, sometimes 10 rejections before I uh, sail through a paper, maybe if it gets accepted. So every time it gets rejected, I keep on adding something to the paper. Whatever comments I get from the reviewers, I think whether if it is appropriate and it can be incorporated, I keep on making my paper better with every rejection. So you will also improve your paper if you take the comments very seriously and try to improve the quality of your paper. You can improve it. So it's a part of your journey. And one thing which you have to bear in mind is you have to have patience. You have to have perseverance. Without this, the journey of a scholar, or the wish, or you can say the dream of a scholar of publishing in good quality journals is very difficult. So you have to have patience. I'll just show you just one thing. I'll just give you access to one. The paper which I was actually showing you all this time was actually published after 10 or 11 rejections. See, these are the name of the journals in which I actually submitted that paper. One, Asia Pacific Journal of Tourism Research, Benchmarking, International Journal of Contemporary Hospitality Management, International Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Administration, International Journal of Quality and Reliability Management, Journal of Management Information Systems, Journal of Service Management, Journal of Service Theory and Practice, Journal of Travel and Tourism Marketing, Service Marketing Quarterly, Tourism Recreation Research. So after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. After 10 rejections, the 11th time I sent it, it got accepted. So publishing in good journals will take time. You have to have patience. Failures will make you stronger. It will actually bring the best person out of you. So have patience. That is what my advice is to most of the researchers. So to sum it up, what we have discussed, publication is the proper endpoint of your research and should add some value to the existing literature. That is what the theoretical contributions talks about. You have to justify how your paper is making even a small amount of contribution to the existing literature. That will be enough to justify publication. It is a continuous process of learning, relearning, and then disseminating a knowledge to on a larger platform. And you need to plan strategically and do proper time management to write research papers. This is again true for your thesis also. If you want to write thesis, or if you want to write good research papers, you need to give proper time, at least 2 hours, 3 hours daily on a regular basis. It should not be once in a while kind of thing. If you don't have continuity, let's say you start writing a paper, you wrote for 2 days and then you took a break of 4 5 days, then if you sit for 4 5 after 4 5 days, it will be very difficult to relate from where you left. So if it the continuity breaks, so your momentum breaks. So have a habit, even if you sit for half an hour, but make it a practice to have continuity as far as the research paper writing is concerned. And publication of our ideas in a good journal gives immense satisfaction. This is something which is intrinsic motivation. We don't have any financial incentive for publishing in good quality journals as far as the university system is concerned, but this is something which can drive you to publish in good journals. And the best strategy to write a paper is to begin as soon as possible. So the early you start, the more time you have. So try to have some good quality journals, some good publications in your CV, in your resume before you complete your PhD. That will give you enough leverage when you go for the interview in some good B schools or some universities. So thank you, and I'm open for the questions.